So now that you've seen the outside of Cedar Grove, let's take a look on the inside. So now it's time for the house tour.
So
Let's check it out.
Come on in.
And so we were just in this room, but when people walk in, obviously they would get the grand staircase. And what did you imagine for when people that walked in, especially people of high esteem? Like, what do you think the setup would have been coming in?
Back then. That day.
Yep.
I think let's actually shut these just for the noise.
And right here, it has torrents right here.
Yes, this was original.
This is original.
This is
You all see that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the H torrents right there. H torrents.
Okay.
And that leads me to everything in this house was built on site except for the hardware and the glass, and that was from Philadelphia or Charleston.
Okay.
But so, what was it like back in the day? We can only imagine.
Sure.
But from what I've found in the records and learning more about James Torrance, it's so interesting. Time doesn't change that much, really. Believe it or not, he was somewhat of a newcomer to the area. There was already a first kind of generation that had come in the earlier 1700s that was established and already doing really well. So James he aspired to be just, have that same level of notoriety, I guess, in the community. So he wanted the biggest and the best. And at that time, Rural Hill had what was considered the biggest and the best. And so James wanted to make his house a little bit bigger than that.
Little competition, right?
A little competition. So we believe that he probably had the best of everything at that time. Of course, after the war, all of that changed.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure it was a place of everybody, dressed to the nines and having always a lot of relatives. People, would come and they would stay because traveling wasn't that easy.
Sure.
So I'm sure this place was always bustling with a lot of things going on.
Most definitely. So which room should we check out first? Should we go back?
Why don't we first, let's start right, let's see if I can find that picture for you I mentioned. So this is about the reunion project while we're here.
Yeah.
So the R in Hearts is for the reunion project. And that did come from the hope to help people reconnect and learn their history, because we wanted to honor everybody that ever lived here. And that actually goes back to our native indigenous people who lived here at the site. So that is also part of our reunion project.
Nice.
Because so much of that history has been lost. And those connections are not very easily found for people. So whatever we felt we could do to help bridge that gap, we wanted to do. And we had no idea how to do it, except once again, it's like putting it out there into the world and then something comes back to you. I got a phone call from Andre Kearns, who I had mentioned earlier, and he had traced his ancestry to Charlotte Kearns, who was enslaved here. And so through that initial meeting, we have learned so much more. So come on in here, and let's see here. And then this is the list that we did present this past June. We have an annual event called Junion, and that is a celebration of the reunion project and things that we have learned. And look at those beautiful crystals on that.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this is when you look at some of these births, and some of them, of course, predate the end of the transatlantic slave trade, is that some of these people could have been, as far as their bloodline, 100% African.
Right.
Or, throughout the African diaspora, whether it was from the Caribbean or what have you. Because, listen, look, folks, 1784, 1804.
Yeah.
So.
And this is Andre's ancestor right there,
Charlotte.
So she was really one of the first
1807.
places. Yeah.
Okay. Here's someone from 1806 as well. Wow. I'm sure whoever took on this project, the labor of love,
Yes.
as well as just
So again, it all goes back to those artifacts and what the records we have. And there is a document, it's called, and this is all online too, so there are links to it. It's called The Ages of Negroes. And so he had documented these things in his notebooks. And so Andre was able to get that as well as some other documents, and from there really get this list going, which has now been included in the 10 Million Names project.
Yeah, which is an amazing project for sure.
So
Okay.
here's that picture of the back of the house, which is hard to see. Let's see if we can show you some of the details.
Yep.
Well, first, I'd like to point out this person we think is a female. And this was taken after the war. Okay. But we do have some of those records you mentioned that state a woman named Vina. And so that she did have a contract after the war to stay with her children here. And we do think there were others as well, but that is one document that we did find. Okay. And so from here also you can see that back porch I was talking about. So see that little mushroom I was pointing out to on the wall?
Yeah, right
so
there.
That's where that handrail connected to the wall, and then it connected to these columns. And you can barely see, this is a reproduction, but they're chickens. And they're running around back here. And so we were thinking maybe they kept it.
Is that what she may have in her hand right there?
She actually has a stack of plates, so you can see that. And so that led everyone to wonder. So there's a cellar here too. We may venture down there. I'm not sure if we will today. But we originally had been told that it was for cooking. But once we got involved down there, the dimensions did not work for that fireplace to have been for cooking. Okay. But they definitely had a finished space down there that they probably ate. Sure. Because it was probably really nice and cool to eat down there. So the fact she's standing right there with plates kind of goes with the theory that they were eating down there. It had an outdoor kitchen, of course, no plumbing, no kitchen in this house. It was another outbuilding. So maybe she was bringing the plates to the washroom. Or we don't know the rest of that story. But these are the windows in the cellar I mentioned. And what those showed us was that they were not like, and it's hard to see because all of those shutters are shut, but the windows up here are out on the front of the building. These were recessed, and so then once we saw that they were recessed in there, we went down into the cellar again and found that ghost hardware that showed that these windows in the cellar actually opened up like this. And so they didn't go up and down like that. They opened like this, and then the shutters would be opened or shut, for light, whatever. Yeah. And so there's a large picture on the wall back here. So that is Margaret Allison. Rather. Yes, and she was married to James, and she took over running the plantation when he passed away. Okay. And her family, the Allisons, are from Iredell County. There's Allisons from many places. I actually have Allisons in my family as well. Okay. But that is Margaret Allison. She's quite a lady. And Iredell County's right up the street, you all. Yes, north of Mecklenburg. And this is a. Yes, this is a 1811 map of Mecklenburg. Got a lot of maps around here. Yeah, I see. Yes. These look a little bit older, though. Yes, these are really very old. And this is an interesting one to draw your attention to this. So when Richard Torrance, just to help with the lineage here, Torrance Banks was the last descendant who lived here. And Torrance's father and mother, Dick and Belle Banks, are the ones that moved back in the late 40s, early 50s. Dick's mother with Delia was Richard's daughter. Okay. So when Richard was trying to figure out how to divide up his land, he had at that time 1687 acres. And so he drew his whole site up into these different parcels. And then with simply lots of, let's just draw a number, children. And whoever got one, got this one, two, etc. And there's Cedar Grove right there. So right here, this is Cedar Grove. So Dick's mom, Delia, drew this lot. And so this was all of their property at one time,
Okay.
but over the years that has all diminished now, and as many of the subdivisions you see
Tons of them.
around
They're everywhere.
here. Yeah.
So as it relates to, this is very interesting to me,
Yes.
right? It looks very custom
Yes. Yes.
to fit, right there. So is this a
Yeah.
custom-made bookshelf, it looks like?
This furniture is very interesting, and I think it may have been custom made for this corner.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Because it was actually gifted, again, back to the name I just mentioned, Delia Banks, had given this over to be shown at Latta, because the Lattas were also connected to this family. And then when Latta was shut down, it was returned to the house. And there was nowhere in this house that this piece fit. And we know it came from here, so we think that's where it was. Yeah. So it was apparently 1790, 1810, and it was made here locally.
Wow.
And let's see, I believe it was one of the Torrance's daughters married a Latta, and so that was gifted over at that time.
So much intermarrying.
Yes.
The marrying of the folks who got the
Right.
money. That's how you did it back then.
And this is the original land deed here from 1779 from John McDowell to Hugh Torrance.
Okay. That's another name that's
Yes,
pretty
everywhere.
prominent around here.
And I really want to learn more about the McDowell family and all of their connections as well.
Okay. So this is room one.
Yes, but let's not go yet. This is also something we found just walking the property. And when I found that one, I know a lot of historic sites do have found, are doing things similar. It really spoke to me, because we do have the exact
Fingerprints.
hand.
Oh, yeah, handprint.
That
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
That's powerful.
it is very powerful. So this would have had a wooden box, would have been the brick mold, and that clay that we talked about out there in the stream. They would have packed it into that mold, and then would have stacked these in their kiln, and then fired them, and then put into the house. This brick came from the granary building that had fallen down. But you can just, even the clay speaks. The different textures in there. It's just fascinating.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've been blessed to have a couple of bricks from my third great grandfather at the house that they built immediately after emancipation.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have about 3 or 4.
Where
of
was
those.
that?
It was in Dixon County, Tennessee.
Okay.
But they were enslaved here in Warren County, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So this as we call it, the center hall is where we have different exhibits for our programs, and then this is the parlor. And this is the same on both sides, but the room we were just in, these doors were shut. And these are some incredibly massive folding doors. I mean,
Are they
this
pretty heavy?
hardware is,
Are they pretty heavy?
very heavy.
Okay.
Very, very, very heavy. And so they could shut this room off into 2 rooms, or have, like what you said about imagining the past, I can only imagine the parties.
Yeah.
And in fact, some of the parties have been written up that
Okay.
between this property and a property that's no more, and it was called Walnut Grove.
Okay.
These were kind of the hot spots for some
It's pretty,
socializing.
Pretty nice parties, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I imagine that the floors are all original?
Oh yes. So this is heart pine, and this painting over the mantle is an interesting mystery piece for us. I had thought, I didn't really think a whole lot of it. I knew it looked old. I didn't know what it really was, but I thought it was some made-up place. We've got waterfalls. We've got, it's beautiful, but it doesn't look very real.
Yeah.
And we have an annual event in March called Irish Connections, and then we had an Irish dance teacher who was from Ireland come in and just couldn't believe it that she said that her grandmother in Ireland had almost the same picture.
Wow.
And she told me, and then now unfortunately I cannot tell you exactly where it was. I do have it written down in Ireland, and it's apparently a well-known spot because of the incredible waterfalls.
Okay.
So now that we know this, we know Hugh was from Ireland, it makes us think this was probably in the family longer than anyone imagined.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely looks like it could be a good entertaining space.
Yes. Yes.
As you all still do events here
Yeah.
now, for sure.
And then before we go up the stairs, I'm
Yep.
going to show you some things on these stairs. They're pretty neat. So again, we talked about how James wanted to be on the in crowd with everything he's doing. This pattern on the staircase is another very in crowd thing of the early 1800s. This pattern can be found in, well, not because so many of the homes that had it are gone now.
Yeah.
But this is called the tulip and vine pattern, and came from a pattern book, literally, that James sold at his store. And I love this part that he made the craftsman buy it from him. So they had to buy the pattern book from his store to put this pattern in his house.
Yeah.
But just take a peek up there.
Yeah, I was just
it's
looking
just a
at
beautiful,
the staircase.
beautiful view.
Nice. Man, just the hours and the craftsmanship,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just amazing.
They say this is black walnut with a handrail here, which has
Okay.
a lot of black walnut around.
Yeah.
So as far as what happened after emancipation,
Yep. Let's talk about it.
the family did try to keep farming.
Okay.
However, that didn't last very long, and so the house was then became leased to tenant farmers, and tenant farmers began farming the land. The family moved to Charlotte.
Okay.
Until
Is the home that they moved to in Charlotte, is it still standing?
I believe they lived with other Torrance relatives.
Okay.
So they didn't actually have another home
Okay.
necessarily they went to. And so this is just the upstairs area
Yeah.
up here. The originally 4 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms now has been converted into a very old bathroom that is now being rehabilitated.
Okay. Wow. Tall ceilings too.
Oh yeah.
And this
That is James.
This is James Torrance. Okay. And so this was the
We don't know.
Main
We don't
room?
know who slept where exactly. Something feels like that in this room to me.
yeah.
So we put him in here.
So he was the second owner of the home.
No, he built it.
Okay, so he built. I don't know why.
Hugh. Hugh was
okay,
over
Hugh was
here.
over there. Okay, got
Yep.
you.
And then Hugh built a house here,
Here.
and then it got torn down, and then
then-
they built this.
Okay,
Yes.
got you. Got the names mixed up.
Yes. And then
Okay.
Richard is his son that got it next.
And this house, but did it have modern furniture in it when this last person
A
passed?
little
or-
bit, but not much.
Wow.
It had all of this stuff in it. The story is that a lot of the original furniture, such as these beds, when we go up to the attic, there's a lot of closets up there, and it was all locked up in storage. So when Dick and Belle moved in the late 40s, early 50s time period, then it all came out. So I don't even know that they even knew what all they had until that time period.
Man.
Yeah.
And so you all, let's look outside this window so you can come up with your own conclusion. Do you think this would have been the front side of the house, right? And then we'll mosey over here and we'll see if you think this view would have been the front side of the house.
So-
That's one of those mysteries that you
It
just kind of
is.
never know,
Right,
right? But
right. And just remember, none of these trees would have been there. So it would have been, you would have had just an incredible vista
View,
that
yeah.
way. Yeah.
okay.
And as far as this bed goes, we definitely think they probably had trundles by how high it is. So there probably has another bed under there that rolled out. These are some interesting chairs here on loan from the Mecklenburg Historical Association. And these were made in Mecklenburg County. And they have a very unique thing. So if anybody's out there, antique shows or yard sales,
Yeah.
look for this little dip
Yep. See it?
here and this knob here. And those are some of the clues of original Mecklenburg chairs.
Cool. All right.
All right. Let's see. So the house did not have any, obviously back then had no heat or air. Okay, so only heat would have been in those fireplaces. Dick and Belle did install a oil furnace that gave heat to the first floor, but that is all that that family had as well until 2 years ago when we have got the electricity upgraded so it could handle a system. So we do have heat and air now.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
back then they did not, and
Nope.
it was very, very cold in here, and the family would be and spend a lot of room probably in this room in the winters because they did put a wood stove in here. So,
Okay.
but this would have been a bedroom in here. This was actually Margaret.
These are huge bedrooms.
Yes,
Like even to today's standards.
yeah, they are. They're very, very nicely large.
Y'all, this bedroom is huge. I could fit 2 of my main bedrooms in
Yeah,
here.
definitely could be just a whole apartment. Really.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
And in New York, it could be 3.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And since we're not going to the Hugh Torrance house and store today, here's
Yeah.
a wonderful little model of it.
Yeah, we'll have to do that at some point, though.
We do. This was actually created by, at one point, an 8th grader who is probably an adult at this point because it was done a long time ago. But this is a model of the Hugh Torrance house and store.
Yeah.
The original log cabin was kind of underneath this piece. And then they extended that one and added the store. And then they added this addition on last before they moved over.
Gotcha. Sweet.
And there's just some odd things in here. we
Yeah,
can
so like
share.
this right here.
Yeah.
Now, I learned what this was
Yes.
the last time that I was here.
Right.
It was Cal and I here, right? No, it was just me. No, it was
no.
myself and the folks from Pottstown.
That's right.
Yep. If I remember correctly, butter?
Butter churn.
Butter
yes.
churn.
Yes, I am a swinging butter churn. So the milk and cream in here. We have a little window. We can watch it, and we can rock it. Rock the baby on one side and the butter on the other.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Beautiful.
And then over here, some other names for you. Okay,
Yeah.
Gaston. There's a name
Yep.
for you.
Gaston County.
Yes, and this is Patience Eliza Gaston Torrance, and she married Richard Allison Torrance, and that is Richard here, and this is Richard with and
family.
Patience Eliza with the family. Richard was a very interesting man, and when we make it back downstairs, we've got some of his prosthetics, but he did lose his leg in the Civil War,
Wow.
and he lost his arm after the war in a cotton gin. And actually, a formerly enslaved person who was still working with him saved his life and pulled him out of the gin, but he did lose his arm. But it did not appear to slow Richard down at all. He lived a very long life, had a lot of children. So, yep.
And he looks like, was he much older than her?
That's a great
Like even
question.
from
Let's
this
see.
picture,
Well,
because
here
like she's in here. It says Patience. Well, it just says the Torrance family, so maybe
yeah.
because there's unless that's her. Yeah, it looks like
yeah,
that. Because she's
that's
looks a little bit older.
Patience. That's Richard there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at he's all gray and she's not. So unless they were dying, were women dying? Were y'all
I
dyeing
don't
your hair
think
back
so.
then?
I don't think so. But I'm not an expert on
Yeah,
that.
and I clearly don't have any hair problem because I don't have any hair, right? So. All right, so another room.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going upstairs now.
So we can go upstairs
Yep.
now. This is where the rehabilitation is for where the old bathroom that they put in has
Okay.
now been gutted. So we'll come back when we're finished.
More steps.
Yes, more steps.
All right.
And these steps are a little different. Walking on them, some are a little higher, lower, wider. Very interesting.
And it just still has like that smell of just an old home too.
Books. I think it's old book
I smell the
smell.
books. It's a little bit warmer up here because we know heat rises, of course.
That's right.
So there's a lot of artifacts here.
Yes, so we had a exhibit of old tools from the farm in November, and these were some of the things we learned. It was very interesting. Like, for example, this right here, no idea what this was, and we were like, I said, is it something like a cutlass?
Yeah.
What is it? Well, it turns out it's called a hame.
Okay.
And that would have hung actually like this around the oxen. It would have had some leather on it to comfort the oxen, but it's what all the equipment would have been hooked up to for plowing and probably making those bricks we talked about and those type things. And this is an interesting piece too. We talked about it. Do you
We
remember?
did. I cannot remember. Is it for the bricks?
You're close, for the moldings.
For the moldings.
So we don't have any moldings in this room to show,
Right.
but when we're back downstairs, you can get a good view of the most moldings.
the moldings. I
This
do
was the
remember that.
profile for the
Yep.
plaster moldings.
I do remember that now.
Yeah,
We covered a lot that day.
we did.
And these books are, these are old books,
These are
y'all.
old.
I
A
mean,
lot of these are
old books.
were textbooks for Davidson College. So James Torrance was one of the founders of Davidson, and his sons went there, and so they date back pretty far.
Man. Wow.
And then this, as I mentioned, the closets that things were locked in. These were those closets. Now they're
Okay.
full of HVAC equipment, which was
Yeah.
very handy. But there's still much more to be
Was
found
this the
and
chest
explore.
that was found?
No, that one is pretty much disintegrated, but
Okay.
but it was similar to these. And you can see we have a lot of them.
And all this stuff was in this home.
Yes.
And more books over here on this
Yes.
side, y'all.
And many books have already been taken. So these were the ones they didn't feel like were as special as the ones they took. And there's
Yeah.
still so many amazing things here. It's incredible. And this wood is just, it's beautiful.
Most definitely. Was there ever any discussion of any of the enslaved people living inside the home, as far as like
I don't have any
servants or anything?
proof, but I would say most likely.
Yeah.
I would think so. Although I don't think in the summertime they could have. It was before we got air conditioning. You couldn't come up here in July. It
couldn't
was
bear it.
horrible. It's so hot. But
Yeah.
but also the cellar. We think that it's possible there
Mm-hmm.
too.
And this is another side.
Mm-hmm.
More books.
More books. I've been going through some of these over
Man,
here.
you talk about a treasure trove.
Yeah. Lots to find and see, and we try to pull things out for particular events that we're doing that you know, that relate.
What was the conversation like in any documents or what have you discussing during the Civil War or post Civil War as it relates to the property?
So I have not personally read some of them, but I've read some things that have been written about them. So
Okay.
it's a secondhand. But they have shown a really interesting, like before it happened, a lot of enthusiasm. Like, go, let's
Yeah.
fight for our rights. And after the war started, those letters changed about how awful it was and how horrible it was and when could it end, and a lot of change of tune.
No
And
one
that's
wins.
Reality of war is
Yeah.
no one wins.
No one wins.
So very, very hard times.
Yeah. This house is, it was so well put together, and even now, just being in the shape that it's in, you think 1830s, you're like, what, really?
I know.
And it's just amazing. And that's why I love doing tours like this. I just left the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum, which is in Sedalia, North Carolina, and showed her home. But the educational piece, the hands-on learning, right? Like I like doing the interactive stuff in places I can't go, but being able to come set my feet on the grounds and walk it, and being educated by people like you that
Right.
are over the sites or that own the sites, it's just that much better of an experience for sure.
And we don't want to change that. So the plans right now for Cedar Grove will be to keep it as actually a residence and share it with the public through our nonprofit Work with Hearts. Because I think so many times people do go into these spaces that don't touch,
Yeah.
don't get that close. But we don't feel that it is, it's amazing and we're going to preserve everything, but people lived here.
Yeah.
And people ran around and kids ran around and, so, to allow people to still do that, it means a lot, just like what you just said, to be able to get in there and touch it and feel it.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So you said that there were some things downstairs that we need to look at as it relates to his injury.
Right. Yes.
right?
Come on down. Well, so the family, the room we're going to go in next, the family made to the kitchen.
Okay.
Because originally, remember, there was no kitchen. So this was the kitchen room.
And we're actually hitting it right on time because my camera's getting low.
Okay. Walk fast. Oh.
Yeah, I thought I had the other one on the charger, and it's sitting by it because I was sleepy last night. So I must have forgotten to put it on there, but we're good.
Good.
You all are getting the full experience still. We just may have to speed up just
Yeah.
a tad bit.
So this is was the kitchen room.
Okay.
But originally, again, it's a repeat of the room over there. So these double parlor doors. This would have also been a giant entertaining room in here too. Here, this is what we're here for. Yeah. So these are the prosthetics here of Richard. And originally, I had also been told, there was the Sunday leg, the different, he had favorites that he would wear during different times.
Wow.
But now I'm not so sure about that part. I think that part of it was just about how they got better. So you just got a view of that. But that's the actual catalog that this guy came from. So this is early 1900s. And so I'm betting that he probably had that one until times got better. Yeah.
And this is his crutch too?
His crutch, and then that would have been just like more of a peg leg type of a structure.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Wow. And that just kept being passed down in the family.
Yes. Well, it didn't get taken out of the attic until we got here.
Oh,
so
okay.
it had been up in the
God,
attic.
so they must not have been that inquisitive about...
Well, they knew. Oh, well, there's some stories.
Okay.
You've always got to have some haunted house stories.
This is true.
Well, there's a bunch around these legs as far as the hearing the thump come down the stairs in the middle of the night. So I think that's the young children of Torrance and Margaret, who goes by Chuck now, they were probably real happy that they were up in the attic.
Yeah. They want to see Granddaddy, right?
Yeah, nobody wanted to be hearing that thump. But yeah.
Yeah, and this is, so were you all looking to strip as much as the wall to see what the original paint
that
was,
happened on its own.
Okay.
We did not actually do that. But what we did have to do, because of putting the electrical and the heating and air in, this is where the sink was.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of water damage is what happened here. And so when we took the sink out to build this chase, because this is now full of equipment to get to the next floor, we said, let's just leave this for now. Yeah. I love seeing all the layers.
I do too. I like
we won't be able to have that forever, but we
Yeah.
want to keep it as long as we can.
Most definitely.
We are going to preserve this over here, though, with some plexiglass or something. But just talking again about it being a real home. And even today, the grandchildren checked in here.
This is just 2024.
Yep, they were here
November.
in November visiting, and so this is living history here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this Dylan checking in here. Dylan's about here now.
Yeah. Nice.
And as we're running out of your tape here, I did just want you to get a.
Okay.
So
and Dick was the last one that lived here.
No, that's Torrance.
Torrance.
This is his dad, Dick and Bella, who moved back in after it had been a space for the tenant farmers. So they were the family that came back and started it all. Dick was the editor for the arts and entertainment for the Charlotte Observer for decades, and was an amazing man. And he also just believed in historic preservation and sharing the arts too, so we're happy to continue that legacy.
Well, let me ask you this, and this tour has been absolutely amazing. You get to tell a full story here, and we didn't even get into the Catawbas, of course, but due to time. But how empowering is it to know that you have that type of influence in Mecklenburg County's historical landscape?
I look at it like it needs to be shared to help people understand our history. I guess it does feel a little bit of a duty for that.
Yeah.
As someone who was raised here, I was really taught that, the We didn't really have this around here. There weren't big plantations around here. That was all further south. That was all somewhere else.
Not so much.
Yeah. And so when we start learning these stories, and the same in my family, and I've kind of have learned, or am piecing together, it's all pieces that we piece together, that the hardship that came after the war made them really want to not think about this history anymore. And that's what created some of these divides. But by understanding these pieces and learning from it, it helps everybody understand where we are here a lot better.
Most definitely.
And it's something that I think is really worth sharing. And people also don't really think about it, knowing that you're doing the ancestry. You know, people think about their last name and their one string, you know. But if we go back to that time period, we each have many, 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 many strings. And so, you know, so many times it's like, oh no, we never had that in our family. Well, back at that time period, you had about 64 families that all now contributed to who you are today.
That's true.
So who knows what was going on in those families, and that it's just so fascinating to learn. You know, through this house, it's inspired me to learn more about my ancestry. I didn't even know that I had relatives here in this area until this family story kind of showed me things started overlapping.
Yeah.
I mean, just the...
Because you had mentioned you had some Allisons, right? Was that...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had mentioned
And so I found those in my tree. There is a plantation home across the way in Lincoln County called Ingleside, and I was working on some things for that family, and I noticed a name in their family tree matched a name in my family tree. Predates the building of Ingleside, but still, it's just fascinating. And I think when people realize too, I mean, everybody, I guess, wants to feel special, and everybody is unique and special, but we have so many overlapping stories. And so by just learning somebody else's story, it's going to help you learn more about your own story too.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Well, I greatly appreciate you for allowing me this private tour, even though, you know, you all can come in and we'll provide the information. I'll put it in the description on how you can sign up for the newsletter, because you all have a newsletter, as well as other events that they do have. But it's always really appreciative whenever I'm given access to come into these different intimate spaces that carries the energies of so many different people that came before you and I, and to be able to showcase this for people across the globe, right? Because of this beautiful thing called the internet, in which when I first was introduced to it, it was dial up, right? And it's much faster now, but we get to reach people at such a faster pace. They're able to be educated. And even though they may not be able to come to these places, they're still able to connect to it in some way, shape, or form. And so I just want to appreciate you, and well, I appreciate you, and I thank you for allowing me the opportunity. And it's people like you that allows individuals like me, specifically of African descent, to recognize the strides that are continuously being made to tell a fuller story. You know, I'm part of a slave dwelling project. I'm on the board for that organization, as well as others, like 4 others. And the progress that's being made in this country to tell a fuller story. It's much more rapid than I think a lot of people know. It's just like the grassroots efforts, and we have to make sure that we pour into those and that we amplify them, because people are out there doing the work, and you are included in that, as well as your husband. So I just want to say thank you for that, for sure.
You're welcome, and I just want to encourage anybody out there that's listening that does have family documents and are not sure what to do with them. Reach out. We'll help you figure out what to do with them, but please don't destroy them.
Yes.
I have also heard that sad story of families that don't want to think about this past and have destroyed those records and the things that we could have learned from them.
Most definitely.
There's a place to save everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that room is it. That room upstairs is it.
So we can help connect to archives or whatever, or, you know, you can get out of the middle, but we accept donations of anything. So we'll take care of stuff. So we want to be that for people.
And can you tell us the websites and all that good stuff?
Sure.
And I'm going to put it in the description, if you don't mind.
Hearts Circle is the simplest way to get there. That's just heartscircle.org.
Okay, good stuff. Well, listen, we are here in the entryway. We don't know if this is the front door or if this is the front door, but I want to thank everyone for watching and tuning in, and make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. And do you all have a YouTube channel?
We do. There's
do?
not a lot on it yet.
Not yet.
We may need some help from a videographer. But
I may be that guy.
but we have every one of our events on tape.
Okay.
But getting them to the YouTube channel is
That's
the
the
next.
other thing.
The
Okay,
next
gotcha.
level.
We can talk about
Okay,
that for
cool.
sure. But yes, if you enjoyed today, please subscribe and share with a friend, with a student, and yeah, appreciate it. Peace.